New South Wales, Australia. The deep waters of the Pacific Ocean just off the eastern coast of the land down under are world famous for deep-sea fishing. Here, fishermen regularly catch a variety of marine life, including marlin, swordfish, and even sharks. But in March of 2019, an unusual incident took place when a local fisherman hooked a 550-pound mako shark on his line. As he hauled it into his boat, the only thing left was a severed head. The rest of the massive shark's body had apparently been devoured by an even larger and unidentified ocean predator.
Pictures went viral of this mako shark just absolutely decimated from the head down. There was so much mystery surrounding this because looking at this picture of this mako, this thing looks humongous. It seriously did cause some speculation as to what kind of mega predator could have caused a bite this big on such a huge shark.
What animal could be so large and so ferocious that it literally ripped a shark to shreds? An extraordinary theory emerged. Is it possible that this violent encounter was the work of a real-life sea monster? It may sound like an outlandish notion, but the surprising truth is that this is not the first inexplicable attack that has been recorded off the coast of Australia. In fact, scientists have been actively searching for an elusive and monstrous predator in these waters since 2003.
In 2003, I was involved with Australia's premier scientific organisation, the CSIRO. They'd started a satellite tagging program to better understand the movement patterns of great white sharks. We tagged 4 or 5 great white sharks, and one of them in particular, Shark Alpha, was around 9–10 feet in length. No small animal by any stretch of the imagination. Well, about 2 months later, the tag showed this shark had been chased down the continental shelf edge, down to a depth of around 2,000 feet, where it appeared to have been devoured by something. And that something had an internal temperature of around 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And that temperature, regardless of where the tag went then, the depth, that temperature stayed relatively constant. It was a bubble of temperature, showing it was inside the stomach of something. What that could be, we don't know. But the proportions it would have to eat a great white is colossal. It would have to be massive. You're really starting to stray into the realm of the unbelievable. So that leaves the kind of uncomfortable notion of, what is it?
It's alarming to think that there could be a giant sea monster lurking in the deep that can swallow a great white shark whole. Nevertheless, some scientists claim that even more evidence of a fearsome sea creature lies in the strange behavior of marine life off the coast of Australia.
In 2023, a number of pilot whales beached themselves on the shores of Western Australia. These whales were huddled in an unusual way. People got some of these whales back out to the water, but they came right back in and beached themselves again. One of the theories is that this pod of whales was escaping something, was running away from something. Now, if it was a great white coming towards a pod of whales, there's power in numbers. They wouldn't beach themselves over that. So it couldn't have been just a regular great white shark. There's no way. But if it was something about 65 feet long, maybe.
Is there something else that's in the food chain that is literally frightening them to shore? Is it possible that there is something out here that we literally haven't seen before? And that's the question.
With so many anomalous incidents happening in the waters off Australia, it naturally begs the question, are they all connected? Is there a giant sea monster that can bite a mako shark in half, swallow a great white whole, and send a horde of whales fleeing for their lives? The truth is that for the moment, scientists are at a loss for answers. And for many, the possibility that there are monstrous, undiscovered creatures in the unexplored depths of the ocean should not be dismissed.
And when you take into consideration that we literally don't know very much about the ocean, we only have mapped something like 20% of it, and we've only seen something like 1 or 2% of it. There could be things hiding out here that we've never seen before.
Sobolonye Village, Russia, December 1997. In the cold, unforgiving forests of eastern Siberia, a local hunter named Vladimir Markov discovers the bloody carcass of a wild boar lying half-eaten in the snow. He instantly realizes he's in great danger because he has just stumbled upon a fresh kill made by one of Russia's most dangerous predators, the Siberian tiger.
At the point where Vladimir Markov realized that he was coming upon a tiger's kill, he knew that the tiger will still be there. Because it'll still feed upon that kill until there's nothing left to feed on. So if he doesn't shoot that tiger first, the tiger will kill him. So it was a case for him of kill or be killed.
As the tiger approached Markov to defend its kill, he fired his rifle, but only wounded the angry cat. Injured, the tiger retreated back into the forest. But that's not the end of the story. Because 2 days later, the local authorities were informed that Markov had been attacked and killed at his home by a vicious tiger. When investigators arrived at Markov's log cabin, they found a disturbing scene.
It's pretty remarkable seeing the images. There was obviously quite a lot of blood, clothes are tattered everywhere. Often when tigers kill people, it's not necessarily for food. But in Markov's case, the tiger ate everything it possibly could of him. It wanted to leave no trace of the man. The strangest part of the Vladimir Markov story is the fact that the tiger actively destroyed everything around that lodge that had Vladimir's scent on it. Just destroyed it in seemingly a fit of anger.
But even more unsettling than the gruesome killing itself was the fact that investigators later determined that Markov was eaten by the same tiger he had shot with his rifle.
The tiger tracked Vladimir back to his hunting lodge, at a distance of 11 kilometers. And then it waited. That is what is remarkable. It waited, we think, around 48 hours for him to return to that lodge. And then when Vladimir returned, it killed him.
The story of Vladimir Markov's death at the hands of a deadly tiger is frightening. But it's also mysterious, because while animals will naturally defend themselves when attacked, this tiger tracked Markov down over an unusually long distance. But why?
Big predators will kill smaller predators with which they compete, and there's a long history of human competition with predators. So it's possible the tiger was viewing this as competition, and I want to get rid of a competitor because this is a threat to my livelihood. So don't steal food from tigers is the lesson that stands out from Markov's story.
Did the tiger kill Markov because it viewed him as a threat to its survival? Perhaps. But there are those who believe that it was motivated not by self-preservation, but rather by a desire to exact revenge.
You can't look at this story of Vladimir and not think that this is a story of vengeance. The tiger stalked Vladimir's cabin. It waited for Vladimir to return home for the attack. Everything here points to premeditation. And you look at other instances, you see attacks with tigers who will seek vengeance on people they don't like. These animals can feel these emotions.
All animals have neurochemical responses, which are remarkably similar across all sorts of species. They feel, emotions are feelings that influence behavior, exactly the same as we do.
Do not mess with the tiger. If you do that, it's going to come after you. Markov will have known that when he shot that tiger and it didn't die, he knew that his time was up. This tiger had the ability to hold a grudge with a single individual for over 48 hours and then take its revenge. We have taken dominion over nature in many ways because of our technological developments. But we are still a part of nature, and we are still occasionally on the menu of bigger and stronger animals such as tigers.
Uinta County, Utah. Here on 512 acres of rugged land lies a remote cattle ranch. But according to local legends, this desert landscape is also home to a creature of unspeakable evil. A creature known as the Skinwalker.
A Skinwalker is a shapeshifter. It can become many things: a fox, a coyote, a wolf. There are these recorded stories of bipedal creatures that are walking around with wolf-like heads. The locals on the reservation, they won't talk about it because even mentioning the name of the Skinwalker invites these things in.
Skinwalkers, shape-shifting werewolves who dwell not in remote forests of Eastern Europe, but in the remote desert regions of North America. Skinwalker Ranch, 1994. Experienced ranch hands Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the ranch and the surrounding area. Almost immediately, they find themselves face to face with something they would later describe as pure evil.
One day, Terry had gone to check on his cattle and noticed this extremely large, what appeared to be a wolf, walking around his property. It grabbed one of the calves by the snout and began to tear at it. So he pulls out his .357 Magnum and shoots point blank. And the wolf doesn't react. It doesn't appear fazed at all. So he grabs his deer hunting rifle and shoots the wolf to knock it down. A piece of fur and flesh flies off of the wolf, but again, completely unfazed. And at this point, the wolf is kind of trotting off into the distance casually.
Leveling his rifle, Terry cautiously followed the wolf's trail, only to discover it had disappeared. In the days and weeks that followed, the Shermans began to wonder if what they encountered was a normal wolf or something more.
In the case of the bulletproof wolf, what's interesting is that wolves are not native to the state of Utah for, I think, the past 100 years or so.
The werewolf of legend is described as looking very much like a regular wolf, except much larger. And oftentimes it is said to be sort of bloodthirsty and cunning. We have lots of interesting legends around the world. For example, in Russia, they're known as the Vrukolak, or the Bodark. In France, you have the Loup-garou. In Scotland, the Wolver. And in South America, the Lobizon. And even in countries where you don't traditionally have wolves, you have similar legends. For example, in India, there are were-tigers. And in Africa, were-leopards and were-hyenas. And even in Mexico, were-jaguars. We have to acknowledge that the notion of a shapeshifter, like a werewolf, something that combines the elements of human and animal together into one single body, from a scientific perspective is quite troubling. But the fact that these legends are so widespread is quite intriguing.
An enormous, bloodthirsty, cunning wolf that also happens to be bulletproof. Is it possible that the Shermans encountered one of the werewolves that may have been haunting Skinwalker Ranch for centuries? And if so, what physical evidence is there to support such a fantastic notion?
There has been numerous reports of cattle mutilations that occur not only on Skinwalker Ranch, but the entire Uinta Basin.
Many of the accounts of animal mutilations from Skinwalker Ranch describe animal carcasses that have almost been surgically dissected. Certain large cats can make very clean, precise wounds, things like mountain lions. But it is notable that you have so many accounts of weird livestock mutilations from Skinwalker Ranch. This is very hard to explain in terms of the natural world.
Today, cats are thought of more as pampered pets than as primal hunters. Unlike dogs, they resist training and behave more as if they are not your pet, but that you are theirs. Nevertheless, the bond between cats and humans has proven to be stronger and more astounding than previously thought, especially when examining their eerie ability to track down their human owners across hundreds of miles.
There was this case in 1949. The cat's name was Clementine Jones. The family moved from Western New York to Denver. They couldn't take the cat with them. They left the cat with some friends, and they got a call a while later that the cat had disappeared. 4 months later, this cat showed up at their door. It was their cat. That's a 1,600-mile commute for that cat.
1,600 miles in 4 months? It seems nothing short of miraculous. And yet, there have long been stories of cats traversing vast distances, and we don't know how they do it.
When I think of a story where a cat has traveled an incredible distance in order to go from point A to point B, lots of questions come to mind for me as a scientist. Is there a scent trail, essentially, that they're following that allows them to navigate that space? And do they have that ability to create that mental map?
We know cats potentially have other types of navigational capacities, too, that we don't even know about, that sort of harken back to their ancient ancestors who maybe need to roam great distances in order to hunt, for example, and home their way back to their den.
Some people posit that cats are somehow tuned into the electromagnetic field of the Earth that birds use for navigation.
So there are all sorts of theories. The magnetism one's the most popular, but that can't explain it. If you were given a compass and taken to a place you'd never been before, the compass would tell you where north was, but it wouldn't tell you where home was. So homing animals, including this cat, require more than a magnetic or compass sense.
We think the animal is using their ESP to trail where the family actually went to. That's called side trailing. Psi is the catch-all term we use for any psychic experience. Side trailing typically happens where there's an animal that has a real close connection with the family. And it's possible that the animal saw the path in front of her and followed that path.
There's a lot of unknowns around cats. Is there a psychic connection that exists between cats and their owners, and there's a magnetism that's there that's drawing that cat in? It's entirely possible.
Until cats can talk to us themselves, we may never know exactly what lies behind their eyes. Perhaps it's time to rethink our place in the natural order of things.